Some goodbyes don't come with warning signs, but sometimes the body whispers before it says farewell. Have you ever looked at someone you love and felt something change, something you couldn't quite name? A certain slowness in their step, a quiet disinterest in food, a longer nap than usual, and suddenly, a voice in your heart asks, "Is everything okay?" We don't like to talk about death, especially not when it comes to the people we love. We'd rather believe they'll always be here, that the little things we see are just aging. Nothing more. But what if I told you that sometimes the body speaks before it shuts down, and if we learn to listen, really listen, we can give the people we love a more peaceful, dignified, and supported final chapter. I've spent more than 25 years walking beside older adults and their families as a gerontologist and aging care specialist. I've watched vibrant individuals slow down, not all at once, but in a quiet sequence of signs. Signs that almost always go unnoticed until it's too late. This video isn't about fear. It's about preparation. It's about grace, comfort, and knowing when to lean in, when to hold a hand, when to bring peace, and when to let go with love, not regret. So today, on Daily Elder Advice, I want to walk you through 5 deeply human, subtle warning signs that may indicate an elderly person is in their final year of life. Some of them you might have noticed and dismissed. Others might surprise you, but all of them matter. Because when we recognize these signs, we can respond not with panic, but with compassion, not with dread, but with presence, and not with denial, but with the strength to make these final moments meaningful. Before we begin, if this topic resonates with you, or if you've ever cared for someone in their final season of life, leave us a comment and share your experience or thoughts. Give this video a like if you believe more people should understand these gentle truths. Subscribe to Daily Elder Advice for more compassionate, science-backed guidance on aging well and caring with love. And please, share this video with someone who might need it, a sibling, a neighbor, a friend silently walking this path. You are not alone in this journey. Together, we can help make the final years, whether our own or our loved ones, more dignified, more peaceful, and more deeply human. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The hidden message behind weight loss. When the body starts letting go of weight, it's often letting go of more than just pounds. Unintentional weight loss is one of the earliest and most overlooked indicators that someone may be entering their final year of life. This isn't about dieting or skipping meals. It's about clothes fitting looser, a belt suddenly needing an extra notch, loss of appetite that lingers, a quiet shift in how the body digests, absorbs, and processes food. On the surface, it can look like aging, but beneath the surface, the body is sending a signal, one that says, "I'm beginning to slow down." Research in geriatric medicine shows that significant, unintended weight loss, especially in those over 75, is strongly associated with frailty, decreased immune function, and increased mortality risk. A 2022 longitudinal study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that weight loss of more than 5% in a 6 to 12-month period doubled the likelihood of death in individuals over age 80, even when no cancer or terminal illness was present. Why? Because the body starts losing muscle, called sarcopenia, gut absorption efficiency drops, and hunger cues begin to disappear. It's not just about eating less, it's about the body no longer calling for what it once needed. Real story. Helen's favorite peach pie. Helen was 87. Every Sunday, her granddaughter Clara would bring over peach pie from the local bakery, Helen's favorite. One weekend, Helen only took 2 bites. "Not hungry," she said, waving it off gently. The next week, she barely touched her tea. Clara grew worried. Then the weight began to drop. First a few pounds, then a few more. Helen was still smiling, still chatting, but her frame seemed to shrink each visit. When the doctor ran tests, everything was inconclusive. No new illness, no infection, just slow, quiet decline. But Helen knew, and so did Clara. That year, they made a new routine. Instead of big meals, they shared finger foods, tea with toast, soup in small cups. They played music, looked at old photo albums, and napped under the same quilt. Helen passed away 9 months later. Clara never forgot how much presence that final year gave them, because she noticed the weight loss. and responded with love, not fear. Caregiver guidance. When caring means noticing the quiet changes. Unintentional weight loss in an elderly loved one can feel confusing, even alarming. One week they seem fine, chatting, walking, laughing, and the next, you're tightening their belt or noticing half their meal untouched. But the way we respond as caregivers can make the difference between discomfort and dignity in their final chapter. Here's how to approach it thoughtfully. Step by step. 1. Observe without panic. Track their weight gently over time, not obsessively. Sudden loss of 5% or more in a few months is worth noting. Look for patterns, not one-off meals skipped. Are they refusing breakfast every day now? Is soup their only regular meal? 2. Don't force. Invite instead. Many caregivers fall into the trap of pressuring elders to just eat more. This often backfires. Instead, create pleasant mealtime environments, dim lighting, soft music, quiet companionship. Treat food as an invitation, not a task. 3. Rethink meals. As energy drops, 3 large meals a day might feel overwhelming. Shift to smaller, more frequent portions. Offer nutrient-dense finger foods, soft cheeses, nut butters on toast, avocado slices, yogurt, stewed fruits, or boiled eggs. 4. Hydration is as vital as food. A fading appetite often comes with reduced thirst. Dehydration worsens fatigue and confusion. Offer small sips of water, herbal tea, or broth every hour. Hydration also supports skin health and circulation. 5. Monitor dental or digestive discomfort. Sometimes, the issue isn't appetite, it's pain. Are dentures fitting properly? Is there inspoken acid reflux, constipation, or ulcers? A quick dental or GI check can sometimes solve what looks like emotional withdrawal. 6. Work with, not against, the natural rhythm. Understand that this stage is less about recovery, more about comfort. Sometimes, adding extra calories isn't what matters most, peace and dignity are. And above all, 7. Be present, not just practical. Sit beside them, talk gently, share stories. A banana split might go uneaten, but a quiet, loving presence may be the real nourishment. Weight loss may not mean they're starving, it may mean they're letting go. When you notice an elderly loved one losing weight, it's easy to go into problem-solving mode. But this is one of the most powerful points where aging and acceptance intersect. This sign isn't just about food, it's a quiet, physiological signal that the body is reprioritizing. Less food, because less fuel is needed. Less hunger, because the engine is slowing. So what can you take away from this? Learn to listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. Instead of pushing food, start offering presence. Instead of trying to reverse the decline, start creating a gentler descent. Give them the meals they love, but also the stories, the company, and the comfort that nourishes more than just the stomach. Because weight loss in the final year is not about numbers on a scale. It's about a body slowly letting go and our chance to hold on. Not to prolong, but to love, honor, and say goodbye with grace. Chapter 2. Fatigue that sleep can't fix. This isn't laziness, it's the body trying to preserve its final sparks. When an elderly loved one begins to experience profound fatigue, not just tiredness after a long day, but a deep, body-wide exhaustion that no nap can fix, it's time to pay attention. This kind of fatigue doesn't get better with rest. In fact, it may feel like the rest only deepens the weariness. You might notice them sleeping longer than usual, struggling to get out of bed, avoiding activities they once loved, talking less, moving slower, withdrawing gently from daily life. And what's most striking, even small efforts, walking across the room, brushing their hair, speaking for a few minutes, can feel like climbing a mountain. Why it happens? In the final months or year of life, energy becomes precious. The body, facing diminishing resources, begins to prioritize essential functions only. Here's why this matters. The heart no longer pumps with its former strength. The lungs deliver less oxygen to the blood. The muscles don't receive the oxygen or glucose they need. The metabolism slows, shifting from activity to preservation. This is not depression, though it can sometimes look like it. And it's not simply getting old. This is the body conserving its last reservoir of strength for basic survival. According to the National Institute on Aging, Fatigue is one of the most consistent predictors of near-term decline, especially when paired with weight loss or cognitive changes. Real story: Walter's garden boots. Walter had always been an early riser. At 78, every morning, rain or shine, he'd be out in his backyard tending tomatoes, pulling weeds, and humming to his favorite old Sinatra records. But one spring, his daughter Karen noticed something different. The garden remained untouched. Walter's boots sat unmoved by the back door. At first, he said he was just feeling lazy. But days turned into weeks. He started sleeping more, 10 hours. Then 12, he stopped joining Karen for lunch. Even lifting a spoon seemed to wear him out. Karen grew concerned and took him to the doctor. Blood tests were fine. His heart was stable, just aging, they said, but Walter wasn't himself. One day, he looked out the window at his tomato vines and whispered, "I still love them, I just don't have the strength to love them up close anymore." In those quiet words, Karen understood. Walter wasn't just tired, he was preparing. From that day on, they brought the garden to him. Potted herbs on the porch, fresh basil in his tea, stories of what had sprouted while he rested. They honored his fatigue without trying to fix it. Walter passed away 6 months later, peacefully, his boots still by the door, but his hands gently folded around a sprig of mint. Caregiver guidance. When energy fades, compassion must rise. Caring for someone experiencing deep end-of-life fatigue can be both emotionally and logistically challenging. You want to keep them active, but you also don't want to push too hard. Here's how to navigate that balance. 1. Shift your expectations and theirs. Understand that what was once normal is no longer sustainable. Reframe success. A short conversation may now be a win. Sitting outside for 5 minutes may be their new walk. 2. Avoid toxic positivity. Saying, "Come on, try harder," or "You just need to move more," may do more harm than good. Instead, try, "It's okay to rest. I'm right here. What can I do to make this moment easier?" 3. Support without smothering. Offer physical help, like getting dressed, rooming, or moving between rooms, but ask permission first. Preserving dignity is essential. Use mobility aids, walkers, lift chairs, grab bars without shame. 4. Create energy pockets. Schedule stimulating moments, like family visits or activities, during their most alert hours, usually mornings or early afternoons. Keep outings short and close to home, and allow recovery time after even small events. 5. Nurture their emotional reserves. Fatigue isn't just physical, it's mental too. Offer quiet companionship over loud entertainment. Read to them, sit together in silence, share memories. 6. Watch for overlapping causes. Fatigue can also be worsened by anemia, dehydration, poor sleep quality, medication side effects, undiagnosed depression. If needed, talk to their doctor, but be prepared to accept that there may not be a solution, only comfort. 7. Focus on what brings joy, not what restores energy. Maybe it's listening to their favorite old songs. Maybe it's sipping tea under a blanket. Maybe it's simply holding your hand while resting. These small, quiet rituals become sacred moments. They are the last chapters, and they deserve to be slow. Fatigue is not failure. It's the body's way of closing gently, not abruptly. Profound tiredness in an aging loved one is not something to push through, it's something to listen to. This kind of exhaustion isn't solved with rest or vitamins. It's a signal from the body saying, "I've done enough. Let me slow down." When we recognize this, we can stop measuring their days in activity and start measuring them in connection. Softness, presence. This is your time to offer. Permission to rest, protection from overwhelm, comfort instead of correction. Let their silence speak. Let their stillness be sacred. Let your caregiving be less about movement and more about meaning. Because when the body begins to tire in this deep way, our role shifts from trying to reinvigorate to helping them reorient toward peace. Chapter 3. The mind slips first, cognitive confusion and emotional withdrawal. Before the body lets go, the mind often begins to drift. One of the most heartbreaking and easily misunderstood signs that a person may be nearing the final year of life is a shift in how they think, communicate, and emotionally connect. This doesn't always look like dramatic memory loss or full-blown dementia. Sometimes it's more subtle, forgetting a familiar name, losing track of time, getting confused in places they've known for decades, pausing mid-sentence to search for words that once came easily, repeating questions, forgetting whether they ate or not. But perhaps even more quietly, they begin to withdraw. You might notice they speak less in conversations, avoid family gatherings, sit in silence even when surrounded by loved ones, seem emotionally flat or emotionally distant. This is not just aging. This is the mind gently stepping back from the world. Why it happens? Cognitive decline near end of life is multifactorial and deeply human. Here's what's happening. Reduced blood flow to the brain means fewer nutrients and less oxygen reach areas responsible for memory, language, and mood regulation. Metabolic slowdown causes the brain to deprioritize complex tasks like focus or emotional response. If the person is also dealing with illness, infections, or medication side effects, confusion can increase even faster. In medical terms, this isn't always dementia. Sometimes it's terminal delirium, vascular brain changes, or just the body's natural withdrawal from active processing. But to loved ones, it feels like something more painful, like losing the person before they're physically gone. Real story. Mr. Leon's watch. Leon was a former accountant, meticulous, witty, always punctual. At 84, he still wore his wristwatch religiously and could recall birthdays of every grandchild from memory. But one evening, his daughter Jill noticed he'd misplaced the watch and didn't seem to care. Then came the confusion. He poured orange juice into his coffee, forgot Jill's husband's name, started mixing up days of the week. Jill brushed it off at first, just a little forgetful, she told herself. But what haunted her more wasn't the memory loss, it was the disconnection. Leon no longer initiated conversation. He stopped asking about the kids. He sat silently during dinner, eyes drifting toward the window. And when Jill tried to show him an old photo album, something he once adored, he looked at it and said quietly, "I don't know where I belong in these pictures anymore." That moment broke her, but it also awakened something. Jill stopped trying to correct him. Instead, she entered his world. If he thought it was Sunday on a Tuesday, she let it be Sunday. If he asked about a long-past relative, she told him a story about them. And when words failed, she learned that holding his hand in silence sometimes said more than any sentence ever could. Caregiver guidance. When their mind starts to drift, don't pull them back, walk beside them instead. Cognitive decline in the final stage of life often unfolds quietly, and if misunderstood, can create unnecessary frustration or heartbreak. Here's how to respond with empathy and clarity. 1. Don't correct, connect. If your loved one says something that's slightly off, don't rush to correct it. Instead of, "No, Mom, that's not right," say, "That's a lovely memory, tell me more." Why? Because connection matters more than accuracy. 2. Watch for disorientation as a sign, not a flaw. Confusion can be caused by lack of sleep, dehydration, infection, especially UTIs in older adults, medication side effects. If the change is sudden, rule these out. If it's gradual, see it as part of the body's transition. 3. Simplify their environment. Reduce visual clutter. Keep familiar objects nearby. Use soft lighting, calming scents, and quiet background sounds like classical music or nature. These gentle sensory cues can reduce anxiety and confusion. 4. Use fewer words, more presence. Long conversations may become tiring. Don't force them to keep up. Sit in stillness, hold their hand, smile. These small things carry emotional clarity even when words don't. 5. Validate emotional shifts. They may seem angry, withdrawn, anxious, or unusually serene. Don't dismiss their emotions as not like them. Honor them instead. Sometimes withdrawal is not a sign of depression. It's the mind preparing for peace. 6. Offer gentle structure. Consistent routine can ease confusion. Eat meals at the same time. Keep the same chair. Use the same blanket. Predictability becomes an emotional anchor when memory starts to drift. 7. Let go of who they were and love who they are now. It's okay to grieve the person they used to be, but don't let that grief rob you of the beauty of who they still are right now. In this moment, cognitive decline isn't the end of connection, it's a call to connect differently. When a loved one begins to forget names, repeat themselves, or withdraw from conversation, Don't treat it as a door closing. It's a doorway to a different kind of relationship, one rooted not in intellect, but in emotion, ritual, and presence. This is your opportunity to let go of the need to be remembered and focus on helping them feel safe. Stop measuring love by names or memories and start measuring it by comfort, tone, and warmth. Be the familiar smile, the safe voice, the anchor they may not name but still feel. Cognitive decline is not failure. It's not disconnection. It's the mind saying, I'm letting go of details, but I still feel love. Let that guide you. Chapter 4. Infections that don't heal when the body's shield fades. Sometimes, the smallest wound tells the biggest story. One of the most overlooked signs that someone may be in their final year of life is a weakened immune system, the body's invisible shield, slowly lowering itself. You might not notice it at first. It starts with little things. A cold that lingers too long, a minor scrape that doesn't heal, a simple urinary tract infection, UTI, that keeps coming back, or even a small bruise that turns into an ulcer. At first glance, these seem manageable, annoying, maybe, but not alarming. But if these infections start to repeat, worsen, or take longer to heal, they may point to something deeper. The body is no longer fighting back the way it once could. Why it happens? As we age, our immune systems naturally weaken, but in the final year of life, this decline becomes more pronounced and more dangerous. Here's why. White blood cell production drops, making it harder to fight off bacteria or viruses. Poor circulation means wounds and infections don't get the nutrients and oxygen they need to heal. Energy is redirected to vital organs, leaving the skin, gut, and immune functions neglected. Chronic illnesses like diabetes, heart failure, or kidney disease further compromise the body's defenses. And infections in older adults often don't look like they do in younger people. Instead of a high fever or obvious inflammation, an elderly person might show fatigue, sudden confusion, loss of appetite, increased sleepiness. That's why so many infections are missed, and why the warning signs often come too late. Real story. Margaret Scratch. Margaret had always been a resilient woman, 84 years old. Former librarian, sharp-witted, with a garden she proudly tended every morning. One day, while pruning roses, she scratched her forearm, just a small cut, nothing serious. She washed it, bandaged it, and went about her day. But 2 days later, the scratch looked redder, then swollen, then painful. Her daughter Rachel took her to urgent care. They prescribed antibiotics. The swelling reduced, but never really healed. Weeks passed. The wound reopened. Margaret grew tired. She stopped gardening, stopped reading. She started sleeping more, ate less. Then came a low-grade fever. And with it, confusion. Rachel was devastated. It was just a scratch, she whispered to the doctor. But the truth was, it wasn't about the scratch. It was about Margaret's body no longer having the strength to defend itself. She passed quietly 5 months later. To this day, Rachel says it was that one wound that told her Mom's body had begun to say goodbye. Caregiver guidance. When the body stops fighting, the caregiver's role becomes more about protecting, not curing. Here's how to support a loved one whose immune system is declining. 1. Don't dismiss minor symptoms. Pay attention to lingering coughs, low-grade fevers, new confusion, loss of appetite, skin irritation, or wounds that don't heal. These can all be early signs of infection, even if no fever is present. 2. Understand that atypical infection in elders. Seniors may not show classic signs of illness. Instead, a UTI might show up as confusion or irritability. Pneumonia may appear as fatigue or a sudden decline in energy. Skin infections may not hurt at all, but quietly spread. Don't wait for dramatic symptoms. Subtle is serious. 3. Focus on comfort-based hygiene. Keep skin moisturized and clean. Change bed sheets regularly to avoid pressure sores. Help with gentle oral care to prevent gum infections. Use barrier creams for incontinence to avoid skin breakdown. Simple hygiene becomes medical prevention at this stage. 4. Avoid overtreatment unless it improves quality of life. Sometimes, families pursue aggressive treatments, hospital stays, IV antibiotics, surgeries, hoping to cure the infection. But when the body is in its final year, Ask yourself, will this treatment extend life or prolong suffering? Sometimes comfort, rest, hydration, and warmth matter more than one more round of antibiotics. 5. Create a clean, low-stress environment. Avoid crowds or exposure to illness. Even common colds can be dangerous. Limit visitors if needed. Prioritize airflow, hand washing, and cleanliness at home. Your home becomes their shield when their body can no longer protect itself. 6. Watch the skin. It speaks volumes. Skin that bruises easily, breaks down, or doesn't heal tells a story. Pressure ulcers, rashes, or discolored areas are not cosmetic issues. They're signs of deeper circulatory and immune decline. Takeaway message expanded. It's not the size of the infection, it's the silence in the recovery that matters. When a loved one starts getting sick more often, healing slower, or showing odd symptoms after minor illnesses, don't shrug it off. These are just signs of aging. They may be the body quietly lowering its shield, conserving what little energy it has left. This is your invitation to notice the subtle signs, respond with care, not panic, shift from intervention to protection, and most importantly, walk with them, not ahead of them, because when the immune system grows silent, the heart begins to whisper goodbye. Be there for that whisper, with love, with patience, with deep, honest presence. Chapter 5. When breathing changes everything, the final rhythm. When the breath begins to falter, the soul begins to whisper. Few things are as intimate or as haunting as the moment a loved one's breathing begins to change. It may begin quietly, shortness of breath after light movement, a new, shallow rhythm, long pauses between breaths, sudden gasping or a gurgling sound while lying down. At first, these changes are easy to explain away. Maybe it's allergies, they're just tired, or it's the flu. But when these patterns persist and worsen, it often means the lungs and heart are no longer able to sustain the same life rhythms. The body is beginning its final conservation of energy, and breathing, one of our most automatic functions, begins to falter. Why it happens? Breathing is one of the last bodily functions to shift as the end of life nears. It's also one of the most telling. Here's why these changes happen. The lungs become less elastic, and gas exchange becomes inefficient. The heart weakens, struggling to pump oxygenated blood effectively. Fluid may build up in the lungs or around the heart, common in congestive heart failure or advanced aging. The brain, receiving fewer oxygen signals, stops regulating breath in the same rhythmic way. This leads to what's known as Cheyne-Stokes respiration, a pattern where deep, rapid breaths are followed by long pauses. It's one of the clearest physiological signs that death may be near. And for caregivers, these changes can be terrifying. Watching someone you love gasp, struggle, or breathe irregularly can make you feel helpless. But in many cases, these changes aren't painful for the person. They're part of the body's natural transition process. Real story. Mr. Darrell's gentle fade. Darrell had always been strong, a former high school coach. His voice once filled entire gymnasiums. Even in retirement, he greeted everyone with a booming, "Hey there." But in his 89th year, Darrell began to slow down. First came the shortness of breath. He couldn't climb stairs anymore. Then, even speaking full sentences left him winded. Soon, he needed to sleep propped up, with pillows stacked high just to feel comfortable. His wife, Elaine, thought it was just part of aging. But one night, she noticed something different. His breathing became erratic, fast, then slow. He paused for what felt like 10 seconds, then took a deep, gasping breath. Terrified, she called hospice. The nurse arrived, gently took Darrell's hand, and listened. Then she said, "He's not in pain, he's not suffocating. His body is slowly letting go." Elaine, heartbroken but strangely comforted, sat beside him that night. As the hours passed, Darrell's breathing grew softer, less frequent, and just before dawn, with one final exhale, he was gone. His breath had carried him through every cheer, every whistle, every story, and now, it had carried him home. Caregiver guidance. You don't have to fix their breathing, you had to walk them through it. Breathing changes can be overwhelming to witness, but they don't always require emergency interventions. Instead, here's how to support a loved one through this sacred transition. 1. Recognize the natural rhythm of decline. Irregular breathing is not always a crisis. Many elderly individuals in their final months or weeks will breathe through their mouth, have noisy or wet-sounding breaths, sleep more with shallow or paused breathing. This isn't always distressing for them, but it can be for you. Breathe with them. Stay calm. Your peace is their peace. 2. Elevate their position. If lying flat causes gasping, gently prop them up with pillows or recliner. A semi-upright position helps reduce fluid pressure on the lungs and eases airflow. 3. Use gentle airflow and humidity. A fan or open window can create a soothing breeze that eases the feeling of breathlessness. A cool mist humidifier can ease throat dryness or help with mucus. Avoid very cold air or overly dry environments. 4. Manage secretions compassionately. If you hear a gurgling sound, the so-called death rattle, it's usually not painful, but it can be upsetting to witness. Use a side-lying position to let secretions drain naturally. Speak with a hospice nurse about gentle suctioning or medications to reduce excess saliva. Remember, they're not choking, they're transitioning. 5. Speak slowly. Sit close. Breathe with them. Your voice can regulate theirs. If you're calm, they'll feel safe. Speak in soft tones. Let silence do some of the work. Match their breath with yours for a few moments. It can be grounding for both of you. 6. Avoid oxygen unless medically advised. Oxygen machines may not always help in the final days. They can dry out the nose or prolong discomfort. Focus instead on comfort-focused breathing support. Unless the person has a specific condition requiring oxygen, like COPD. Ask, will this intervention make them feel better or make us feel better? Breathing is not just a biological act, it's a spiritual one. When the breath begins to change, we are witnessing more than a symptom. We are witnessing a farewell unfolding. Don't be afraid of the irregular rhythms. Don't rush to fix what may not be broken. Instead, sit close, speak softly, adjust the pillows, offer a sip of water, touch their shoulder, match their breath, if only for a few moments. Because when breath becomes fragile, what the body craves most is not oxygen, it's presence. In the final stretch of life, it's not about deeper breaths, it's about deeper love. So what we must carry forward. Sometimes, goodbye doesn't come with a warning, but love always leaves one. Over the past few chapters, we've walked gently through 5 of the most profound signs that a person may be entering their final year of life. Unintentional weight loss, when the body begins to let go of nourishment, and meals become moments rather than sustenance. Deep fatigue, not the kind that sleep fixes, but the kind that signals the body is turning inward, conserving its last reserves. Cognitive confusion and withdrawal, when the mind begins to blur the lines of time and memory. And connection happens through presence, not words. Frequent infections and slow healing, when the body's shield grows thin. And even small wounds tell stories of great transition. Changes in breathing and circulation, when the rhythm shifts. And each breath becomes quieter, slower, sacred. Each of these signs, while clinical on paper, is deeply human in reality. They're not just symptoms to manage. They are whispers of a life gently preparing to rest. And if you are seeing these in someone you love, know this: you are not being called to fix them. You are being called to accompany them. The true meaning of caring at this stage of life is not about keeping someone alive at all costs. It's about noticing what's changing, honoring what's fading, and loving with fewer words. More presence. It's about creating space where there is no panic, where silence isn't empty, but full of love, where your loved one doesn't feel like a patient, but like a person. Dignified to the very end. For those WHO have lost, if you've already said goodbye to someone you love, maybe some of these signs feel painfully familiar. Maybe you wish you had known then what you know now. Please don't carry guilt. What matters most is not whether you named the signs, but whether you loved through them. And I promise you, if you were there, if you held their hand, if you whispered their name, you did enough. You gave more than enough. You gave them the most sacred gift of all, presence in their final season. For those WHO are still walking this path, if you are still in this journey, if your parent, your spouse, your grandparent, or your friend is slowly fading, let this video be your gentle guide, not a checklist, not a diagnosis, but a reminder that slowness is not failure, silence is not absence, And goodbye can be beautiful when it's filled with love. If this video has helped you, moved you, or reminded you of someone you love, please give it a like. It helps others find these messages. Subscribe to our channel. We post weekly insights to guide you through aging and caregiving with wisdom. Share this video with a friend, a sibling, a caregiver. You never know who may need it. Leave a comment below, tell us your story, or simply say the name of someone you're honoring today. We read every word, and we hold space for your experience.